On today's show, there's a very encouraging trend with the Cleveland Cavaliers that we need to talk about, and it's coming on the defensive end of the floor. We'll do that. Plus, what should we expect from the team as they head out west for a 5-game road trip? We'll talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribe. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode, of course, is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. The Cleveland Cavaliers have transformed what they've been doing on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that as we look back at the 16-game winning streak that just concluded on Sunday with the loss against Orlando, that is kind of the thing that stands out to me. And there are some things to talk about maybe on the offensive end of the floor that I would like to see this team improve upon as they go out west. And we'll get to that in segment number 2. But I want to start with the positive things that we've seen from this team lately. And to me, the defense is really what stands out about this group. And I will get to the Tuesday trends that I try and do every single week. I don't know that I got to it last week just because there was so much going on with the win streak. But since the calendar turned from January 31st to February 1st, the Cavs have been the best defense in the NBA. Now, they throughout the season have not been consistent enough defensively, like we talked about earlier in the season, how good they were early in October and then how bad they were in November, where I think they were 20th in defense in November, and then December was really good. They were 3rd in defense, and January was not great. Well, since February 1st, since the calendar flipped from January to February, the Cavs have the number 1 defense in the NBA. And a lot of it is, there is some shooting luck in this, and I'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of this is how good the Cavs have been around the rim. I still think that they allow opponents into the paint a little with a frequency that's a little bit higher than you would like them to see. I think that the point of attack defense is something that can still improve. And I think that is going to be the thing that when eventually we talk about an Eastern Conference Final series against the Boston Celtics, like that is going to be at an all-time high for this group, is the point of attack defense on the perimeter, because that to me is how you stop the Celtics 3-point attack, is not allowing them to get into the paint and the drive and kick stuff that they do so well. That's kind of the key to stopping just about any good team with a high 3-point volume at this rate in the NBA. But while the Cavs have allowed maybe more attempts at the rim than you would like to see, they've done a great job defending those attempts. So since February 1st, Cavs opponents are shooting 61% at the rim. That sounds like a high number. It's not. That's the best mark in the NBA. That to me is where they've been really good. And I think Jarrett Allen deserves a ton of credit for that. I think Evan Mobley deserves a ton of credit for that. I think a lot of guys deserve credit for that, but those two are certainly the ones that are going to stand out anytime you talk about defending the rim, right? Because those are the guys that are tasked with protecting the basket. And I think that Jarrett Allen has been really, really good on that end of the floor lately. I think Evan Mobley's been spectacular really throughout the entire season defensively. He hasn't necessarily always gotten the recognition because of where the Cavs ranked on defense throughout certain parts. Like, as I mentioned, November was not great. January was not great. The rest of the season has been pretty good, but the inconsistencies I do think led a little bit to him maybe not getting the defensive player of the year recognition until later on. Of course, Victor Wembanyama being ruled out for the season is part of that conversation too. But Cavs opponents are shooting 61% in the restricted area since February 1st. That's about 17 games, I think it is, which is not the biggest sample size, right? Like, it's not as if this is a full season type of thing, but it's enough of a sample size, especially considering that the team underwent changes there. Like, not all of these games have happened since the DeAndre Hunter trade. Like, the Cavs were still the old version of the Cavs for a few of these games, but part of it has been with a new look team. So the fact that they've been this good at this not only speaks to how good those guys are in Jarrett and Evan, but I do think it also talks about the difficulty of the shots that are being attempted at the rim. It's not just, oh, teams are missing layups. And is that going to happen from time to time? Sure. Every team in the NBA is going to benefit from a blown layup here and there. But I do think that the Cavs have done a great job of forcing opponents into really difficult shots in the restricted area. It's not just, oh, there's a layup line. And, I think what actually does stand out to me about this number being where it is I wonder what it would be if you remove the Memphis game from this past weekend, right, where Ja Morant had 44 points, and I thought, had some really spectacular finishes around the rim. I thought he was awesome in that game, and that's really the only time, at least that I can think of lately, where the Cavs have been punished by the basket. And, he did that, but none of the teammates for him were able to get going. No one else in that game for Memphis other than Ja had more than 13 points. So that is certainly something that I think is considered a successful strategy. And the Cavs, beat the brakes off Memphis, I think, in every sense of the word in that game. So that is one of the things that I do think is a really good sign. The other thing that is a really good sign about this is of the field goal attempts that opponents are taking. 19.7% of opponent shots since February 1st are considered wide open. Now, wide open means that there's not a defender essentially within 6 feet or more. We saw the Cavs against Orlando on Sunday miss several of those looks. Sam Merrill was awful on wide open shots on Sunday against the Magic. That's going to happen. But the Cavs having a frequency that low of wide open shots allowed, and this, I do believe, does include transition opportunities. Like, if there's a breakaway layup and no one's there, like, that counts as a wide open shot because it is a wide open shot. So 19.7% of opponent shots right now from February 1st through today are considered wide open. That's the fourth fewest in basketball. The Cavs have done a great job at limiting that. They've done a great job at being in the places they're supposed to be. Now, is shooting luck part of this? Sure. Like, in that span, 37 teams are shooting 37% on wide open threes, which is below league average. And that matters. Like, that is part of the conversation. I don't think it's a crazy number below league average. It's not one of the best, but it is a little bit below league average. Like, you would expect, I think, if you're a team, you'd probably expect to shoot around 42% on wide open catch and shoot opportunities from beyond the arc, or not even catch and shoot, but wide open threes. You probably expect to be 40, 42, 45%, somewhere in that ballpark if you're a good shooting team. The other thing I will bring up, the Cavs opponents on open 3-point attempts, which is a defender within 4 and 6 feet of the shooter when the ball is released. Opponents are shooting 30% on that, which is one of the better marks in the league. Like, that is the area where I say, okay, maybe the Cavs are getting a little bit lucky there. Like, that number shouldn't be necessarily around 40%, but it probably should be higher than 30%. I do think that's one of the areas where the Cavs have maybe gotten a little bit lucky. But overall, I think there's a lot to be encouraged with defensively. And I will get to the trends for, what they've looked like since trading for DeAndre Hunter, what they look like for the season, where they stand as far as all of those numbers go. But the Cavs have been, for the most part, an elite offense all season long. They've been the number one offense in basketball. And spoiler alert, they are still the number one offense in basketball, despite maybe not the best offense that they've played lately. That is who they've been. And they've been inconsistent defensively. But in a month and a half, they've been the best defense in basketball. And that is not everything, but it's not nothing either. It is something that is worth talking about. It's something that is worth paying attention to, because when the postseason arrives, and I don't expect the Cavs to have a ton of games in the playoffs that look like Sunday's game against Orlando, where they just cannot hit water if they fell out of a boat on open 3-point attempts. Like, that's just not who the Cavs are. They're going to have very few, if any, playoff games where they shoot 25% or worse from beyond the arc. That is not going to happen. They're going to be better offensively, but they are going to need to be able to win with defense. And I think if we learned anything about this team over the last month and a half, with what we've seen from them on that end of the floor, they're not only capable with destroying teams with how good they are offensively and just burying teams with avalanches and three-point barrages and doing all those things. They're still very capable of doing that. The offense still, I think, will get better. And there are lineups that I think I'm going to dive into on my Substack this week that have just been incredible for the Cavs offensively. But they've also proven in the last month and a half that this is the team that we should expect to see win games with defense. And in the postseason, if this is a team that wants to win a championship this year, and spoiler alert, it is a team that wants to win a championship this year. Championship teams need to be able to win with both. Over the last month and a half, the Cavs have been a team that is able to win with both. And that needs to be something that still is true when the postseason arrives. Now, we don't know if it will or not, but there are some really good signs from what we've seen. Now, the Cavs are heading out west for a 5-game road trip. It's their last long road trip of the year. We're going to see some teams that we haven't seen yet so far this season. What should we expect for the Cavs on this road trip? We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping, meal planning, I tend to have a problem. If you know me, I don't necessarily have the most time to do things. I'm a very, very busy person. I don't have a ton of time to go to the grocery store all the time as often as maybe I would like with work, life. Of course, I'm always trying to eat healthier. That's really not a great thing. And it's not something I'm good at, but it's something that does stress me out a little bit. And maybe going to the grocery store when you're hungry, which is, of course, something nobody wants to do. You could end up buying things that you don't need and also not have the time to actually cook them. If you want to stick to your health goals, that can be a struggle too. But when you discover Hungry Root, things can be changed. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries based on your taste and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. The best part, every meal can be ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. It's a huge time saver and can make eating healthy so much simpler. So you're going to love Hungry Root. And for a limited time, you get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Again, that is hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, whoa, where did all that money go between online shopping, entertainment, going out with friends? Those costs can add up pretty quickly, and it can be easy to lose track of it. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They can be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. That's what we want. We want to take control of our finances, people. Monarch Money, not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. You can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. That is what we want to do. That sounds great. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan for some of those long-term goals that you might have. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress that sometimes can come along with that. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDONNBA, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. Make sure you also check out the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. The Cavs now head out west. They have a 5-game West Coast trip beginning tonight at the Intuit Dome against the LA Clippers. And by the way, the Locked On Cavs whip around episode going to come out early this afternoon. Just trying to schedule with folks that cover teams on the West Coast can be kind of difficult with the time change. I have a very busy Sunday. Like, if you don't know, I also host the Locked On NBA Game Night show on Sunday nights. So it can be a challenge for me to kind of find extra time on Sunday to talk to people. And when, other people are 3 hours behind, it can just be difficult. So expect that to hit your feeds a little bit later on today. Plus, with St. Patrick's Day being yesterday, Tuesday just kind of does make a little bit more sense for this week. But the Cavs take on the Clippers tonight, then the Kings tomorrow. They see the Phoenix Suns on Friday, the Utah Jazz on Sunday, and wrap up next Tuesday against the Portland Trailblazers for their 5th and final game on this road trip. Of course, some of these teams they haven't seen. They've not played the Clippers yet. They've not played the Kings yet. They are 1-0 against Phoenix, Utah, and Portland on the year so far. But what should we be looking for as the team goes out west? And for me, the number one thing that sticks out, and maybe it's hard to say this because of how good the defense has been lately, but it is attention to detail and the intensity level. And I think those things are probably more so geared towards the offensive end of the floor, because I think that the attention to detail, while it maybe hasn't slipped on defense because they've been so good lately, I do think it's slipped a little bit on offense. Now, the Cavs have still, for the most part, been a really, really good offense. However, this month they're 15th in offense. Like, that is not championship level offense. And part of that is Donovan Mitchell has missed, I believe, 3 games. Darius Garland has not looked right. I think he's looking better. We'll talk about him in a second. Evan Mobley has missed a couple of games. Like, the Cavs have not been whole. In some games, they've looked great. In other games, they haven't looked as good. Like against Orlando, I think they really, really missed Evan Mobley's playmaking, specifically against the Magic on the offensive end of the floor. But I'm going to be watching for what does their offense look like on this trip. I think that is something that should be viewed at as an important thing, especially in the game against the Clippers, because if you look at who they're playing, the Clippers are the best defense they'll see on this trip. LA has the number 3 defense in basketball. The rest of the trip, though, not necessarily coming against great defenses. Portland is 16th, Sacramento is 19th, Phoenix is 27th, Utah is 29th. So they're not playing great defenses. I think that aside from the game against the Clippers, who again have the number 3 defense in basketball entering Tuesday night, or as I record this, entering Monday night, really. Games have not been played Monday as I record this. As you listen to games, maybe they slip to 4, but I doubt it because I don't think Orlando plays today. So that is one of the things to watch. Like, aside from the game against the Clippers, they have what should be viewed as a get-right week. They should be able to score a lot of points. They should be able to get their offense back on track. And of course, they've had some really, really good offensive nights against some of the best defenses in basketball, because you look at, what they did, not against Orlando on Sunday, but when they played them a few weeks ago in Orlando and they beat them by 40, offense was not a problem. They've had really good offensive nights against the Boston Celtics. They had a really good night against the Houston Rockets in a loss. They had a really good night against OKC. Like, they have played really well. They had a couple of pretty strong nights against Minnesota too on the offensive end. Like, they've had really, really good nights against the best defenses in basketball. But I do think having the opportunity to see some of the lesser defenses, and to be fair, their schedule lately has included some really good defenses. If you look at Memphis is 10th, Milwaukee is 11th, obviously Orlando is 4th. Like, they've played some good defenses as of late, and that is something to keep in mind when you talk about the offensive slippage for the Cavs. But having opportunities here on this West Coast trip to go against some weaker defenses, I think should be something that maybe gets this offense back on track and maybe gets the cutting back to where it was. One of the things that has slipped a little bit for the Cavs is their assist percentage. So for the season, and it's not like a giant departure from what they've been, but for the season, the Cavs are assisting on 63% of their made baskets. in the month of March, that number's at 61. Like, that's not a big drop off, but it's something that's just a little bit different. I think that in certain games, particularly against Orlando on Sunday, you kind of felt that, where the movement wasn't necessarily what it was. And I don't personally have access to a stat that describes movement. I'm sure the Cavs do with all of the tracking stuff they have, and the Cavs have been one of the teams that cuts the most. I haven't looked into that particular number, what that looks like as of late, but I do think that they kind of need to, I don't want to say get back to basics on offense, but I think the ball movement can be better. And the other thing that I'm going to look at is, what does Darius Garland look like on this trip? Because he's not had a great month since that hip injury. He's not been Darius Garland. I thought against Orlando, aside from the 5 turnovers he had, I thought against Orlando, Darius Garland played really well. I thought he shot the basketball well. The floater looked back. How does he look on this trip? That is one of the things that I'm very interested in. Does he look like the guy that was an all-star? Does he look like a guy that was building an all-NBA case? Or is he going to continue to be in this little shooting slump? I think he's had some good games lately. I think he's had probably better fourth quarters than full basketball games lately. But I am very curious, what are things going to look like for him? Because if he's right, he's one of the best point guards in basketball. And I think that he's maybe the guy, because Donovan is so capable, I think, of just carrying an offense on his own. And Evan, I think, does a lot of really good things. But when Darius has it going, and when Darius, you see him playing with that joy, when you see him making the floater that he's been so great at all year, when you see him shooting threes at a high clip, that to me is the thing that takes the Cavs offense from really good to unstoppable. I think it's Darius Garland from just everything I've seen. And this is not just a this year thing. I think that it's he's a really good barometer for when the Cavs are elite offensively. So if he looks like Darius Garland, like we're used to seeing, I think the Cavs will enjoy a lot of success on this road trip. But it'll be very interesting to see what they look like offensively. And if they do look great offensively, does that carry over to defense? Like, do they still maintain being an elite level defensive team? I think those two things maybe could go hand in hand. And maybe if the defense or the offense picks back up, we start to see the Cavs play some of their best basketball of the entire season. So it is time for the Tuesday Trends. We're going to talk about full season, last 15, and of course, since February 10th, when DeAndre Hunter was acquired. We'll do all that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season, not just heating up, it is here. And there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's easy to use, available in over 30 states, and let you mix and match projections across different sports. Prize Picks makes it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. And when you win, your money going to hit your account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around for that cash. And every Tuesday, that's today, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% off, giving even more value to your lineup. So what you need to do is download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDONNBA, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. The Cavs are still, despite not having a great month, the best offense in basketball. They rank number 1 in offensive rating for the entire season with an offensive rating of 121.5. That is down a little bit. They are no longer the best offense in NBA history, but there still is a considerable margin between who they are offensively and who the next best offensive team is. So the Cavs are number 1 at 121.5. The Denver Nuggets have the second best offense at 119.3. So there's more than 2 points per 100 possession difference between the Cavs and the second best team. Their defensive rating kind of holding steady at number 7. I think there's a chance they can maybe get as high as 5 this season, especially with how they've been playing lately. But their defensive rating is 110.9 for the season. They're equidistant between 6th and 8th right now. Net rating for the season is 10.6, which, as you would imagine, is number 2 behind Oklahoma City. Defensive rating is, net rating, like 10.6 is elite. They are still one of the best 10 regular season teams of all time. But OKC's is just, 12.2 is ridiculous. OKC has a defensive rating of 106.2, and they've not necessarily been great defensively over the last month and a half or so. I think they've taken their foot off the gas on that end. But if you watch their game on Sunday night against Milwaukee, I think that game sort of served as a reminder of just what they're capable on that end of the floor. So then going to the last 15 games for the Cavs on offense, which this is sort of the numbers for the Cavs. They've played 15 games since February 10th. So teams around them have moved since February 10th because not every team has played 15 games in that time span, but the Cavs have. So for both the last 15 games and February 10th, these numbers are going to be the same. They have an offensive rating, and this is, of course, since DeAndre Hunter made his debut. That's why we pull this February 10th date. They've played 15 games since then. Offensive rating of 121, which ranks 2nd in the NBA. The only team that's had a better offensive rating since February 10th is Oklahoma City. They've been really, really good on that end of the floor. Defensive rating of 108.2. They have the 3rd best defense in basketball. So they are number 2 on offense, number 3 on defense since DeAndre Hunter made his debut. It's been fantastic stuff. They've been really, really special on, I don't want to say both ends of the floor because, as I said, in March, offense has not been great, but they've been an elite team. They've been a championship team since DeAndre Hunter made his debut. Net rating is plus 12.8, which for 15 games is a really good mark. Of course, they're 14-1 in the last 15 games, with the one loss being against Orlando on Sunday, but they have the best net rating in basketball since DeAndre Hunter arrived. They have been the best team in basketball since DeAndre Hunter made his debut. And I think that speaks to the fact that I really do believe this, he has made this team better. And I don't think that the Cavs are at their peak yet with what they can look like with DeAndre Hunter. I think we've seen flashes of it. The lineup with him and Evan Mobley has been absolutely outstanding. I'm going to write about that probably for Thursday. So if Evan's going to play tonight, which the injury report is not out as I record this on Monday, but if both those guys play Tuesday and Wednesday, I just think it's really interesting. Keep an eye on those lineups because that is really when the Cavs have taken over some games, is when Evan Mobley's at the 5 and DeAndre Hunter's at the 4. Those lineups that absolutely dominated teams. I think that's a big part of the success that they've had. We'll see what things look like for the Cavs on this West Coast trip. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they fare, particularly in tonight's game, because the offense has not been great going against a really good Clippers defense. So we'll see what that looks like. Tip-off is 10:30, more like 10:40 Eastern time on Tuesday night. I will be staying up and watching this game. I will be writing about this game at the Inside Shot, and I will have a podcast about this game, hopefully first thing in the morning for you. Hopefully the podcast YouTube still comes out at the normal time. It's going to depend what time the game ends. It's going to be a late night for me, but I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. So thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and I'll be back tomorrow.